Hello everyone, this is Tanya Davies here, the Success Slow Coach, speaker, trainer and therapist, and owner and founder of the Mindful Impact Wellness Hub. Today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Charlene Lynch. Charlene is a speaker and thought leader on Mindshift, the future of mindset. That's a great title, Charlene. Thank you for joining me today.
I'm so excited to be here. I love being in your proximity. It's great to catch up with you this way, face to face. It feels face to face.
It is face to face. And look, full disclosure, Charlene happens to be my amazing mentor through the speakers program at the moment. So thank you for joining me. I couldn't think of a better person to join me on a cold, wet, windy day to enlighten me and share the information with all of my audience today on what really has brought you to have a conversation about the slow leadership movement. So let's get stuck into it. Charlene, give us a little bit of idea of who it is that you work with and what's your focus when we talk about Mindshift.
Great question. Okay, from a coaching perspective, most of my clients are small to medium-sized businesses and a fair amount of entrepreneurs. So at that point where they are starting to scale, that's when they go, oh dear, what I have been doing isn't going to work. I'm just digging a deeper hole, and that's when they lean into the Mindshift process. As a speaker, I am privileged to share in the corporate space. And also, I do have quite a lot of following in the entrepreneur and multi-level marketing space as well. So in and around teams and the shift process and what that looks like, and people that want to live their best lives. So I get the opportunity to share both.
Yeah, and look, I'm a pretty selective person, so I'm really pleased to actually be working with you in this space, especially on the speaker side of things. But one of the things I've noticed about you is you are one of the most productive people I have ever met. I'm not going to use the word busy because it's banned literally in this scenario, but you in your workspace, you would have met so many people, the busy professionals that are constantly coming and going. What is it that you believe? Why can't they slow down? Why can't they stop?
So that's a how long's a piece of string? Have we got, how many hours have we got here?
$1 million question, I know, but what's your perspective?
So a lot of it's cover up.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to do the inner work. So keeping busy is a good thing. It's like the default mechanism. So they sometimes think that a busy work is getting things done. In fact, it's actually quite the opposite. So there's lots of other things attached to it. So a string of limiting beliefs, a string of patterns, family patterns, life patterns, and just need to get closer to their inner self, their core, living their life on purpose, and take that time to just simply breathe. We don't have to, and I can say this with a hand on heart because that's the person I used to be. So I have ADD, and now it's managed. Now it's my superpower. So one of the things that allows me to be so productive, yes, and in its day though, it was the thing that made me busy and do all the busy work. Sometimes from my own perspective, I'll say that the busy work helped inflate my ego as well, because it made me feel like as if I was contributing more and doing more. In fact, it was quite the opposite. It's a complicated issue, but it all does start with, as you correctly and aptly say, slowing down, slowing the breath down, slowing your eating down, slowing, the meditation down, the prayer down, going for a walk, that mindful consideration, all of those things. It doesn't cost money to slow down. Yes, and it makes you money.
Absolutely. Thank you. In a nutshell. Beautiful. We can end now. Well done. But look, I'd also like you to share a little bit, with your permission, I'd like you to share a little bit about where you in your life have either had the universe right royally slow you down without choice, or you've consciously decided to slow down. Share with us a little bit, if you would, in that space.
On more than one occasion, the universe has not just tapped me on the shoulder, but yelled loudly so that I would actually understand. And it's happened many times. And the challenge was that I was not able to, until I'd really embraced the Mindshift process, understand now it's time to actually slow down. So in some instances, when things got busier, I just made them busier. So the reverse was working, and then could not understand why things would fall apart. So on many occasions, so the most impactful has definitely got to be the passing of my beautiful baby boy. that was really a life-altering moment where I didn't have a choice but to slow down and get very introspective and get very, very to the core of things, because I'd made a decision I was going to live a different life, and the patterns of behavior that I had built weren't going to work moving forward to live the life I want to live. So that, yeah, that really forced me. So sometimes, unfortunately, it has to be a life-altering experience that does happen. If we're clever, we'll hear the universe whisper, it's time to slow down, rather than yell. And here's the strange thing about how this process works. When you slow down, even if it's just your breath, or it could be your eating, or it could be your walking, whatever it is that you're doing, if you slow it down, the answers come.
Yeah, they do.
You get that connection and you understand what the next step you need to do is. And then you find that, and I've found this, and most of my clients do as well, that there's other ways to get the things done. It doesn't necessarily have to be you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your busy work. So it's meant for a lot more creativity in the slowing down and still increasing the productivity. So yeah, and with that comes outsourcing and a lot of other things that you can do when you relinquish the busy work.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You've hit on a couple of things there, and there's one thing I'd like to emphasize to people, that the universe doesn't sort of say it once to you, slow down, and then never again. It happens time after time after time if you continue to ignore it. And I hear that come through very clearly from what you've said there, that we will get tripped over multiple times if we continue to pack in the busy. We won't hear those whispers, as you say. So I'd like to move on to a question that I really like this question that I throw at people, because I want to know who sticks in your mind as giving you the best advice possible to slow down, and why?
Oh, well, besides the Dalai Lama? No, my dad, and, he was a minister of religion, plus he was also a psychiatric nurse and an advocate for mental health, and had his fingers in lots of pies. So yes, and he still was even slowed down his speech. So when he spoke, there were lots of pauses in how he presented and how he talked. And it just in that allowed you, when he was sharing a message, for that message to land, just from slowing down and adding pauses to how he was communicating. So Dad really helped me understand, just even stopping to have a look at a picture in an art gallery and just examining the pieces and how it fits together, and then just absorbing it and then enjoying it and then having a look at the feeling. So like all of the aspects of just slowing down and just observing, which is one of the tips that I always do in my stop process, is definitely to observe. And so I've got to say my dad. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. And so what personal tools, having that advice from your dad, what personal tools do you actually use in a daily, weekly, monthly basis to keep yourself balanced and in check so that you do actually do the stopping?
Yes. Okay. So I have a morning ritual, which involves, when I first wake up, the first thing I do is I stay in that space between dream and awake, so that I call it soaking in it. So that I can soak in that space between the two realms. And I find I get messages, I get information, I get clarity, I get understanding, I get so many questions answered when I can just sit and soak in. I don't think too much. It's more just absorbing it. Yeah, the observation. And then straight after that, then I'll go into a space of gratitude, which for me is giving thanks. As a Christian, that's what I do. So I give thanks for everything. And then I move into my meditation and then affirmations. So that's just before I've got out of bed. and so then I can really start slow and stay high. Now, I used to start high, stay high, but it's not. For me, it is start slow.
Yeah.
And it always needs to be about me and filling up my own bucket. And then I get to stay high for the entire day. And Tanya, you know me, it doesn't matter what time of the day or the night, I am still this wild, crazy creature, even till the wee hours of the morning. And that's because I start with these slow practices.
Yeah, I agree. I felt the same, that if there is a really busy morning, it's going to carry through to the day. But if there's a highly productive and slow and calm morning, it tends to actually be contagious.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
So throughout the day, if I find things like piling up or there's lots of things happening and sort of the plates aren't spinning as they could do, or there's conflicting priorities, emergencies when we don't have time for emergencies, then, I always just stop and breathe. So that's my very first call to action for anything is just to live in the breath space and just to enjoy the breath, the in and the out of it, and just get that connection. Another process that I use is called STOP, S-T-O-P. So the S, and so this is because I had panic attacks for the longest period of time. Okay. And so I use STOP to help me work through the panic attack. So S in the STOP stands for silence or stillness, because sometimes you can have silence, but you don't necessarily still. You might be moving or doing something, so you can't find the stillness, but you can at least find the silence. Sometimes you cannot find the silence because there's things that need to be said, but you can still be still. Yeah. So, and then the T is the touch. So touching, and I'm touching my microphone. So touch anything. I'm touching my coffee now. Yeah. Oh, it's actually hot chocolate, but touch. And if you touch is not possible, taste. So one or the other. And this is just incorporating other senses for me to, because a panic attack is just like, for those of you who haven't had it, it's like a wild state of anxiety where your heart's beating fast, you're sweating like a pig, you're breathing like ridiculously, and you just think that your heart's going to explode and that you're going to die. Like, that's what it feels like.
There's an overwhelming sense of panic there.
Yeah, and which is the speed of it, the frequency of it is very high. So I find using the stop, so the stop and the S, the silence and the stillness, and then the touch and the taste, and the O is observe. And this is what I learned from my dad, is just to observe, just observe everything. And so I'm now bringing in another sense as well. I'm observing everything. And then P is just being present. There might be a disaster happening, but right now, what's okay? My feet are on the ground. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm not naked. Like, everything's okay. So I use stop to help me move through. And I'm happy to say now that if I feel those level of emotions rising, and heading towards that heightened energy level for a panic attack, I'm at least able now, with my breath work and using the stop process, to be able to manage it. So I have not had a panic attack in a very long time. So I'm very happy about that. Well, so the short answer to all your questions was start slow, stay high, breath work, and then if it starts to get elevated, I use stop.
Okay. You are across many things in your world, and I think stop is an incredible technique to use, but we all still have sometimes those moments where life just sucks, right? And being my mentor, I'm not allowed to say that in front of you, but it happens. But what I'm really interested in, and I'm sure my audience is as well, is that when you are doing all this work, I'm sure you still have challenges, and I'd like to know, what kind of categories do these challenges come in for you? Do they have a theme? And if they do, what is it on your mind to work on in that space?
So you're talking about conflicting...
biggest challenges you face, even knowing everything that you know in the coaching space, what are still your personal biggest challenges?
Okay, so they're not conflicting. So things will happen as they happen, and that's okay. I'm not attached to those. But for me, still in my space, is the decision-making process, is just having that slowing down to get connected to the gut, to actually really lean into the intuition. So some decisions have to be made, and they are going to be decisions that are going to impact people's livelihoods. Yes. They're going to be decisions that are going to impact people's lives sometimes. So yeah, it is, regardless of all the busy stuff and everything that's happening, is making sure that I still find that quiet, that stillness, to get that connection, so that I can make not just a well-informed decision from having all the data, is also having that decision from the higher self and getting connected to that. So sometimes with everything that's happening, there might be lots of voices telling me, these are real voices, not me.
It's okay if they're not.
I've got one department telling me this. I've got another people telling me that. I've got statistics that tell me this. I've got research that tells me that. I've got all of this information, and I still need to make a decision about what we're going to do moving forward, is to find that quiet place and make the decision. And sometimes you can be doing this in a room full of people. Absolutely. So when you're in process, don't look like you're processing, smile.
All right, that's going to lead me on to, you do work in the leadership space with a lot of different organizations. I'd love to know from you the slow process that we talk about here, the stop that you spoke about in detail, going into that stillness. What do you think is a great benefit for business leaders when they actually decide to consciously slow down and do the stop? What benefits are the business going to see?
Yeah, they say the fish rots from the head up, head down, I should say. And so I have been blessed to be a leader in one fashion or another, whether it be in my early years in sport. A fun fact you might not know about me, myself and a small group of women, we actually created women's football here in South Australia. So from a very early age, I have a concept of leadership and what it needs to look like and what it doesn't look like, just saying.
Yeah, so hang on, my English background, I have to clarify. Are we talking the real football or are we talking AFL?
AFL.
Okay, just checking.
So yeah, before so South Australian Women's Football League. Yeah. Anyway, enough about that. Let's focus on this at hand. So what I've found of working with different leadership is that it's like sometimes herding cats. So I've spent many years in the multi-level marketing space. In that space, it is herding cats because these people are a will unto themselves. They're entrepreneurs. They do not need to turn up for things. So how do you get leaders to have that buy-in to choose to move forward? Yeah, and how do you set an example so that you're not doing the busy work, so they're not thinking they need to do the busy work and no one gets anything done? Yeah. So having everyone on the same values is what I really feel is a very, very important thing. So having your values for your organization and having buy-in for this as well. And this is if you're a leadership of a school as well. So not just your school leadership needs the values, but also the school themselves need values. So all the different levels of the organization that you work with, everyone needs to have that buy-in to the values base, because that sets a very strong foundation. And we need to set an example of how to not do the busy work. Absolutely. And understanding our boundaries and, understanding when to say no. We have, people in the workplace that are people pleasers and, being able to identify that and helping them move through the process so that they can actually stand their own ground as well. Giving people ownership of process and also giving them, not just giving them authority, but not just giving them the work to do, but also giving them the authority so that they can actually, tick their own boxes and teaching them the leadership skills as well. Rather than, I love that, teaching a man to fish rather than giving him a fish. And when you're teaching leaders to lead, you need to give them the chance to lead and you need to give them the chance to make their mistakes and to learn from them and find a way to present the feedback in a way that's very supportive of them so they can have the aha moment. And they can move forward themselves. Yeah. So as a recovering perfectionist, in my early days as leadership, I used to run dynamic teams, but I did all the work myself. And that's because
a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this now that are the janitor to the CEO that will absolutely hear you.
Yeah. So I used to do everything myself because it couldn't be done by anyone else and it was never going to be good. So I'd do it myself. Yeah. So I learned the hard way that is not how to lead a team. So I actually managed to sabotage that team completely. So I did learn the universe was screaming at me and I did learn that lesson. And now my leadership style is completely different. I give people the opportunity I mentor them through the process, give them an opportunity to make decisions, have conversations with them about it, offer suggestions and, fundamentally back them. If they've made a decision and it might not be, it hasn't turned out to be the right thing, I will still back them as a leader because that's what people need in the leadership space. Moving up the ladder, they need to know that someone's got their back, that they're supported and that they're in that supportive environment. And as I said before, values-based, that everyone knows what the values are for the organization, for the group, for the unit, and that we use them supportedly moving forward. Absolutely. And then foundationally, I should say.
Yeah, and then they can make sure that their values, their personal values, are absolutely aligned with the organization. And I've had that experience before, like I'm sure many of our listeners have, where there's been a clash. And that's when you need to sit back and as you've gone through, you need to actually start to establish whether that's the right place for you. It's a hard conversation, but it's a very relevant one. So thank you very much, Charlene, for sharing everything you have today. It's been really quite insightful. And I think people can get a really good taste of exactly what it's like to work with you. So here's your opportunity, everyone. Listen up very carefully. Charlene, if people want to get in contact with you, what's your website for them to be able to do that?
Yeah, just Google Charlene Lynch, Sharlene Lynch. I'm everywhere. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. You'll find me. I'm not hard to find. Got coaching packages, but I like to start the journey with a discovery call. I need to see if we're a good fit. Not everyone's perfect for everybody, and you might not appreciate the speed at which I work. Tanya certainly does.
Look, and if you actually would love to see Charlene on stage doing her thing, she's also the head of the South Australia Speakers Tribe as well, which is where I met you and began that journey together. It's been an amazing ride, that's for sure. There's another opportunity there to reach out to Charlene in that space as well. So once again, thank you, Charlene, for everything that you've shared with us today. It's been my absolute pleasure, and we will catch up very soon to continue my journey. And everyone, thank you very much for joining us today. All of the links to be able to contact Charlene will be in the description of the comments. Please like, share, and we'll see you very soon. Take care.